Welcome to How to Money with Kole and Cole.
I'm Cole.
And I'm Cole.
We coach people every day on their money and how to plan for the future.
As financial advisors, we're here to have an honest conversation on investing, retirement, and everything in between.
At Full Swing Financial Planning, we're here to empower you to take control of your plan, your way, for your financial future.
So let's talk money.
And sports.
Welcome back to How to Money with Cole and Cole. And guess what? This is already my favorite episode we have ever done, ever, because we have the two biggest MVPs of our business, Full Swing Financial Planning, and that is the wives of Kole and Cole.
That's an understatement.
Molly, Chelsie, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Molly, what's it like to sit next to Cole? Just look at this. Look at this conversation we're going to have. Everyone's nervous.
Bailey's giddy.
And honestly, though, we wouldn't be able to have the Coles and Coles as much as we get them at work if it wasn't for you two. So they really are the guest of honor today.
Yes. Thank you very much.
So before we get into these lovely ladies and why they're here, let's go Celtics.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, we're
At least one of
excited.
your teams is good.
Is there
The Fever's not doing well.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
Fever's not really my team. They're just obviously becoming everybody's team.
Everybody's?
The state of Iowa's team.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah,
we don't
yes.
have our pro team, so it's kind of like we're holding the ground there.
Yeah. Then they've been better lately, but they still haven't beat any of the good teams.
No, there's so much drama though. Like Angel Reese and Clark just had their third rematch. I just love it. Like it's just
They play each other very often.
yes. We got to remember too, they're very comfortable with each other. They've been playing since high school. They just got off from playing with college. There's just a lot of animosity there and a lot of money flowing through those two.
A lot of Iowans, I think, are following the WNBA,
Yes.
which is cool. It's cool. I know more about the WNBA than the real NBA, I feel like. So
Yeah.
Well, I don't because my two sons are really into the NBA, and I told them at the beginning of the playoffs, like I'd be really surprised if the Celtics didn't win. And I told Joseph, our oldest son, at the beginning of this series, I said, I got the Celtics in 4 or 5. Do you want to bet? He wouldn't.
We were just talking about bets and
Oh,
you know,
oh god.
I got to say it and no one else believes it and I don't care. I truly think Molly, myself, and Chelsie would beat you two and Luke in basketball, especially full court. Molly,
Not even
would you take that full court bet?
I'd love to play.
Yeah, I think we should set it up. Don't you guys think so?
Sure.
Wow.
I'd be happy to do it.
Okay.
One of us would probably
Half
get hurt. One of
court,
the guys
full
would probably
court,
get hurt.
3 courts, whatever you want to do.
I saw
You're
Luke
not winning.
I saw Luke playing wiffle ball, laying out, playing wiffle ball. Like he's gonna win the Hustler Award, I promise you, in this
Yes.
basketball game. So
He's a hustler.
yep, he had grass stains from playing a wiffle ball game
Against our
Memphis Jeans.
5, 7-year-olds.
Yeah,
You forgot
5,
forgot
6, and
that part.
7-year-olds.
So what's going on with the Cubs? Then I really am antsy to get to the girls.
Boy, I do not want to talk about the Cubs. They're stinky.
Are they?
We gotta give you your moment though. You
Yeah,
know,
I don't follow
They
Cubs at all.
are like 5 games under 500, completely out of the playoff race and in last place in their division. They have blown, I think, like 21 saves this year. It's like an astronomical amount. And they just played their 30th one-run game last night against the Giants. So we're taping this on a Tuesday. It was a Monday night, and they lost 7-6. And in one-run games are like something stupid, like 12 and 20 or something like that.
The great thing about baseball, it feels like it never ends. It's just game after game after game. It's like
that's good or bad. I don't
it's
know.
like our 7-year-old baseball team. Practice game. It's just never ending.
Yeah, they're less than halfway through the season, so there is chance to turn it around. But
Okay, let's get why we're here. No, everyone's like, wow, the wives are here. Let's hear about it.
Are
What
we
do
talking
they
about
think
Cubs?
about Cole
Yeah.
and Cole? But honestly, the reason we're having them on this episode, one, because we want to hear what it's like to be married to you guys. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. They
Please
both
don't
just
do
held
that.
their breath. Like I literally saw Cole Peterson holding his breath.
they whine a lot. They play a ton of golf.
And I do it. I make the team work. So anyways, what it's like to do finances with your spouse, and then also what it's like to be a financial advisor in your guys' transition over to Fort Dodge, starting Full Swing, what it's like. So let's get into all the topics. So first one I want to ask, and then I'm going to kind of stop talking and let the girls and boys do the most talking. So what was your
We'll
guys'
see about that.
what was your guys' financial conversations like pre-marriage? And then when you got married, maybe talk about your personal experiences of maybe the journey you went on in finances. Cole and Molly, let's start with you guys first. Because Molly, I believe right when you got married, Cole didn't have a job.
That is true that our marriage certificate does say that he's unemployed.
That's got to be,
Good start.
it's got to be feeling confident going in.
yeah,
Which Oh,
we laughed about that a lot.
Yeah, we do laugh about that. I'm not even sure if it's a valid marriage certificate because we got it in the Bahamas and we never had it anything. We never came back to the United States and got any piece of paper. So I'm not sure if we're even technically married, but I do know that the marriage certificate rather says unemployed because he was in a period of transition, bless his heart. I was living in Des Moines and working in Des Moines, and so he was on his way to come live in Des Moines with me and then eventually did start working in Des Moines as well.
Yeah. I did have a job lined up, just so everybody knows. And we never lived in the same towns before we got married. So she lived in Des Moines. I lived in Cedar Falls. I moved to Ida Grove. She moved to Cedar Rapids. Then she moved back to Des Moines. And then I moved to Des Moines as we got married. So we never lived in the same town, then the same apartment, same anything. We never shared any expenses.
You were not commingling.
No. Unlike the other couples
we'll hear the other side.
in the room, we're doing a little too much commingling, if I remember right, before marriage. So, we when we first got married, it was like a whole new world because we had not lived with each other 24/7, and we had some growing pains, but obviously we're still here, almost 18 years later.
And you weren't really a financial advisor, and obviously that job had launched you into your financial career, but you weren't doing what you're doing now. So maybe talk about what did that look like? Did you guys start doing finances separate right away, or together right away, or separate, or how does this whole thing come full circle for you guys?
So we started separate. We'd never really had the conversation before we got married. At least I don't remember having the conversation a whole lot. She's kind of looking into the sky, wondering if we did. I'm not sure. Do you remember us having that conversation at all? Really about money a whole lot?
Not probably as much as we should have. I don't think you have a lot of the conversations you probably should before you get married as much. You just don't know what you're getting into. You do not know. If it's your first time getting married, you have no idea what you're getting into.
How much baggage does this guy have?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think on our first date at Red Lobster, I said, how much debt do you have? I probably should have. And he didn't have a ton, but he had more than I did. Because I didn't have to pay for college. So I was on an athletic scholarship. So some of that stuff I was like, oh, you're going to have school payments? What are those? School loans? That's new to me. That's not a reason not to marry someone or to marry them. But I think people today are a lot smarter about that stuff. And they're sitting down across from each other and saying, what do you make? How have you saved? Where's your debt at? And we didn't do that. And I don't regret not doing that. But I would definitely, if you're listening to this and you're in a serious relationship, put it out on the table. And then there's no surprises. Because I have friends who definitely got surprised by the amount of debt that their spouse had. I wasn't in that position. It was not a lot. But I have girlfriends who married people with a lot of debt and they're still working on it and they're
that's
our
stressful
age.
And you don't know what you're signing up for, but at least if you have the conversation prior, that's such a good point. I know I didn't have those conversations. Also wish I would have with Luke, not that it strained us or I wouldn't have changed anything, but then you're at least on the same page and kind of starting off on the same page. And if you were wondering why Molly was on athletic scholarship, it's because she's a baller and better at basketball than Cole. Okay, focus. So you guys you're doing separate, then what does it start looking like? As you didn't have these conversations, but now you have kids, now you're changing jobs. What did that conversation start looking like?
So we bought our first house. And I think that is really what made us, because we started talking about the house payment and the housing expenses, how are we going to, and it was okay, why don't we just join this up, and that way we don't have to try to do things out of your account and out of my account, and we tried to do that for a little bit with the house that we bought, but it just didn't work. So we got to a point where we felt like it wasn't working for us to have separate accounts, and we both thought joint accounts would just work better, or a joint account, and have everything flow through one funnel. So that's kind of how that all started.
I think that was my first spreadsheet, ladies. I think I was the first spreadsheet, first of many that I've been printed and handed over the years. And I haven't seen any of those for a while, which is really nice.
I love that.
That was my first spreadsheet. I was a television reporter, so keep in mind there is a hair, makeup, wardrobe situation going on here. And I have a very vivid memory of, you spend what on your hair? And I was like, this doesn't look like this just naturally.
This isn't natural, babe.
And clothes cost what? And I'm like, I can't shop where normal people shop. So those are some vivid memories. And the spreadsheet, again, probably in hindsight, I could have received that a little bit better than I did. But we've had our bumps and bruises financially. And I say that in all honesty. it was hard for me to have someone say, here's what we're going to do. And we probably could have had more conversations together, and we did better as we went along, as far as like, let's talk about this first, then develop the spreadsheet. But I think Cole really wanted to be on a budget really quick. And that was part of the reason that we put our finances together. And I don't regret that. That's helped us achieve some of our financial goals today.
Do you feel closer now that you're doing money together? Because I know Cole P probably felt like, you know.
Well, it was such a short period that we didn't do it together, so we don't really know any different a whole lot. It's been a longer period that we haven't had a budget, and I think not having we have a budget, but
we have a budget.
We have a budget, but not having a spreadsheet that I print out and give to Molly. I think we've had a longer period of that, so that's made us closer because she
want to stay married. I think I don't know.
This is why this is my favorite episode. No, but I really appreciate you guys sharing that, because a lot of these people don't have these conversations. We have a lot of clients that still don't have these conversations, and I think a lot of people, especially we're reading some statistics on the millennial generation, it's maybe like a trust thing and realizing you can probably obtain your goals together quicker and have the same goals and work as a team versus like if you're trying to do things separately.
It is important to know, though, there's not a right or wrong way to do this, right? Some people, we have many that are clients, very successful, separate. They funnel, maybe they have one joint account, two separate accounts. They kind of budget the money together. And then works just fine for them. But I
as
think,
long as they talk about it,
as
long as you have the conversation and communicate about it, when you get with a couple and one has all their finances over here and the other one has all their finances over here and they don't know anything about each other's, that's where there's a little bit of a struggle, especially for us financial advisors.
Makes it very difficult, actually, because you're like, well, what am I supposed to tell? You don't want to say too much because like, well, this is my money, that's her money, and
Yeah, you almost have to plan two separate retirements. So it's a little bit tricky when it comes to that. But most of the time, that's what we see is like they know about each other's accounts. They just keep one account separate where they do their own personal things out of like their nails, their hair, and things like that.
Molly also forgot to mention, how much do those golf clubs cost? Like, how much does that golfing cost?
Preach.
Yeah, see? So, Chelsea, now you get to do a little talking and tell us all the deets about Cole, being married to Cole.
That I can do. Yeah.
Do you get spreadsheets as well?
Not as many, no, but I've definitely seen my fair share of spreadsheets for sure. We were talking a little bit off mic too about how you say opposites attract, and it's so true. I mean, opposites attract in the best way. He is definitely more of like our analytical planner, where I'm more of fly by the seat of my pants, kind of go with the flow. So
living for the moment.
I don't know if this always makes, but again, I've heard this, that females a lot of times are attracted to people that are similar traits to their father. And I'm very similar to her dad.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, I've heard that. So I'm like, or her, a little bit. Yep. We have some different traits.
I've heard it. Very true, Cole. So let's get into it. So you guys, very opposite of Molly and Cole. Cole had a job and Chelsea had a job.
Yeah.
And a baby came.
Yes.
Correct? So maybe tell the audience what your guys' pre-marriage financial conversations were like.
Yeah, so we both graduated college in 2015 around the same time. So we both had jobs lined up post-college right away. So
I was trying to play in the NFL, and Chelsea had a real stable, good job.
So Cole was chasing a dream, and you were working. Got it.
Yes.
I was accruing debt, and she was paying off debt.
And so we found out basically a couple months into my new full-time job, post-graduating college, that I was pregnant with our oldest son, Kale. So definitely not planned, but obviously wouldn't trade it for the world. So I think that kind of forced us, same thing with Cole and Molly, like we didn't really have conversations before, probably like we should have. I mean, again, first dates, we're not talking about, hey, what's your debt, kind of thing. So we were kind of more forced to, because we had to start buying diapers and wipes and
figuring out where we're going to live.
And where we're going to live. So we had a lot, I think, more spending at that point in our life than we were talking about maybe saving. But it, again, forced us to have those conversations of, okay, how do we want to split our money? Are we going to pool it together? Are we going to have separate accounts?
So what did that look like? Did you pool it together? Did you try and do it separate for a while? What'd you do since you technically weren't married?
We did very quickly. I would say she knew I was pretty I had always kind of watched dollars and very diligent and understanding financial topics. And it was, I think, a little bit more new to her. Dad helped her out with a lot of stuff. So she was, kind of learning. So, when we figured that out, we're like, okay, where we're going to live. That's when we really started to say, okay, we probably opened a joint account at that time. And
it's official.
And we were both very lucky. I had like $3,000 of college loan debt. Other than that, I was same thing. I was on all athletic scholarship, and Chelsea, had some student loans, but she had a very high paying job right out of college. So she hammered her student loans out in like 18 months.
Yeah. Definitely looking back, I'm glad I did it the way I did it. Yeah. In hindsight, obviously it worked out great, but obviously having a high paying job helped with that too.
But it was a very stressful probably period of your time because you're expecting, you're working, and it sounds like that job was kind of stressful and working on you hard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was putting in the hours for sure, and not to throw Cole under the bus, but I was definitely the breadwinner at that point in our life too.
No,
for sure.
I was bringing in the money, and so I realized when I found out I was pregnant, like my role was going to change a little bit more because I was going to have to take time off from maternity leave. And so again, that kind of forced us to have the conversation, okay, what's that going to look like? When my income's going to be cut because I'm on, disability or,
At this point, were you still trying to be in the NFL? Seriously,
I still was having tryouts and conversations and stuff. I was working kind of a little bit for my dad, pouring concrete and doing some stuff like that. But then around this time too, when we found out she was pregnant, that was when I started transitioning to our business. I was like, okay, I knew at some point I was going to get into the, being a financial planner, financial advisor. And that was when I was like, okay, now I've got a, less dreamy, more like I probably need to worry about,
I gotta
making
pay
money.
The bills.
Yeah. You got a kid and like makes you kind of grow up real quick. And we also, she was going through a training program and she was living in Minnesota, Rochester. You were living in Rochester. So we were like, oh, where are we going to live?
Yeah.
Because we were not living together officially. I mean, we spent a lot of time together because I was kind of homeless at that time. So I was like all over the place.
And part of my career too was I did a year of training and then they placed you somewhere. So I was going to stay around the Midwest, but I didn't know that I was going to be back in Iowa. I could have been in Minnesota. I could have been in South Dakota. So it was really just dependent on, that was part of it when we signed up for it is, hey, you kind of go where they tell you.
What a stressful situation you guys were kind of in baby work. Chelsea's kind of making the money. You're kind of chasing a dream, but now you're pivoting to a completely different plan because obviously unexpected. So was it helpful being very transparent financially when you started like having the pregnancy and the changes, or do you think like you could have done it differently?
Ooh, good question.
I mean, I think there's always things, again, like looking back, you probably should have had, more conversations, but I think it, again, helped us to grow quicker that we didn't have those because we were kind of forced to make them as it came up. And I don't know. It's a hard question.
I think we're lucky. We're fortunate that we didn't have a lot of burden of debt. So, and her income was there. So it made some of those decisions easier versus like, hey, maybe like more basic or like medium or average income, for her, if she was there and had more debt, it would have made like some of the decisions a lot more difficult, maybe a lot more stress between us. And there was already the stress of like, hey, we're going to be parents, super young, not married, like a lot of this stuff. So
wait, people have babies before marriage?
There's a little commingling there.
No, just kidding. Because
commingling.
Me and Luke did the exact same thing. We never talked about it. I mean, I shouldn't be saying this on air, but it all works out retrospectively. We never even talked about marriage. Like, I didn't know Luke was going to propose, but we ended up getting pregnant. And then a few months later, I was like, okay, well, we're putting our money together because we're having a child together. So if we're going to be adults,
you're paying for these diapers too.
I think it's just that we talked about this off air too. That's how I was raised. Like, right. You like my dad was like, you very much are committed to each other. You're doing this now. And I remember, okay, so what do you got? Like, what's going on? What's your situation? And I was like, where's your money? Like, what are we doing here? Like, are you saving anything? But it wasn't rude. It was just like almost like shock effect. Like I don't think a lot of people talk about it. And I think it's sometimes maybe like not the sexiest conversation, but wow, like I do think it really could help as a relationship off in the beginning to just know what's going on with each other and what's your plans and goals. And then you can actually plan together and live together.
I think a really good conversation to have with your spouse, if even if you're not super comfortable yet, it's kind of how you were raised around money. And everyone's, it was completely different. Maybe had money, didn't have money, transparency, no transparency. Some parents are super open to their kids, tell them about everything. And I know we've kind of talked about that, how we treat with our kids, but I think that does have an impact of like, as you grow into your, adolescence to an adult and getting a full-time job of your experiences, or how your parents maybe, talked about money around you. So
I think this is a good, so I wanted to ask you this question. I mean, I'll ask you right on air here. What do you do when your kids ask you? Like, I've had my kids ask you, how much money do you make? Or what did that cost? Or how much did you spend on that? Or what did you bet? Like,
what does mommy spend on makeup?
No, it's a great question. My kids, you're probably having a little different conversation because kids are older. So they're starting to be more mature of like, they're maybe wanting dollars because they're starting to buy things on their own. Our kids aren't quite buying things yet. Kale has that concept of like, hey, I can go to Target and get a $20 Lego. He kind of understands that. But what I've tried to teach him of more of only so far, not so much the concept of what things cost, of the habit of spending or a habit of saving. Like I show him his brokerage account, or he has a custodial account, and I'll like, hey, you want to see how much money you made or lost today? And I try to teach that concept of like, hey, saving. This money is working while you're sleeping, right? Or, long term. And he sees that. And he has this, hopefully he never listens to this, because we kind of, Chelsie saw his diary. He had a little, and we were talking about writing goals down. We were talking about writing goals down. And one of his goals was to have $20,000 in his brokerage account. And the other one was a girl related to a little girlfriend in his class. So I feel so bad. Like I broke his confidence, confidentiality.
Right,
yeah. But I can tell, like, those conversations that we're having, like he understands that. And like we try to, I would say, tie money and then also fitness or like health, in our household, of like, hey, it's a long game, like something it's a habit in your life. Like it's an everyday thing. It's not something you do for a little while and shut off. So but I bet your conversation is a lot different because your kids are much older, or some of your kids are much older. So it's more like they're getting their own debit card, or, we're going to start that stuff, or they want a cell phone. They want this and this, or brand new Jordans, or whatever it is, So,
the Jordans is definitely a conversation, but it's definitely evolved over time. That's for sure. And I want to kind of go back to what you guys were talking about earlier is just having the conversation, because I believe, and I don't have the stat, that money is the top reason for divorce in the United States. Correct? I mean, there are very few things that split up couples more than money. And just having the conversation about what maybe your budget is, or what you can spend on certain things, or what you shouldn't spend, or what we're saving, just having the conversation is the biggest thing. People that don't have the conversation or don't know about each other's finances, sometimes doesn't work out.
I think it's a trust thing too. Like, right. If I trust my spouse, yes, Luke might be into something I don't understand why he's spending money on, but if I trust that he's working hard and we're working towards the same goal, I think there's some relief in that. I do have friends that still to this day do their spouses and them do money financially separate, and then now they have kids, and it's kind of a stressor, like who's in charge of what, who's paying for daycare, who's paying for clothes, and I feel like you really miss out on that opportunity just to communicate and like work together. And I do think there's some power, and it's not like you have to do it this way. I know there's different people, different personalities, where the opposite way works completely better, to keep it separate and they just pay for this and they pay for that. But I do think there's some sort of connection. But you guys kind of transitioned, so you were kind of and I want to kind of come back to this, you were kind of making the money, and then you kind of had to let that role go. And I kind of think it was a more peaceful, like same right now. This was a private conversation you guys had. Was it worth Chelsie working 90 hours, making that amount of money? Was she happy? Was it working for you as a couple? So maybe talk about what that looked like, maybe stepping down from that type of work and letting Cole kind of lead.
Yeah, I would say looking back, that was probably the most stressful time in our life.
For sure.
Financially, one, of just having those conversations and figuring out what we're going to do. But also, the job was stressful as well. He was kind of transitioning into new roles and new companies at that time too. So yeah, we had the conversation. That was probably 4 or 5 years in when Kale was 4 or 5. So, and we really were like, hey, do we want to grow our family even more? And what does that look like down the road when I'm putting, 80 hours a week and not able to spend time with my kids the way I want to, when I also want to be the mother, the nurturing one, to be able to make all this stuff at home. And also he was, again, transitioning more to earning a little bit more too, where it was a little bit more realistic. Had we had that conversation 2 years even prior, it probably wouldn't have been realistic at the time.
I think any entrepreneur, though, goes through that phase where if you are really trying to grow something, there's unknown, right? She was a salaried. We knew what her wage was. It was predictable. She got an increase. She got an increase each year. She had a company car. She had all this. So we could know exactly. And our field is very not like that, right? It's volatile up and down, but you have to, you earn what you make. Right. And to get started in this business, there's no security blanket of like, hey, if I fail, I get this still. No, it's like, nope, you're going to do something else and get another job if you don't make it. So that was one of the things for me, like looking at it as like the stressor of like, I'm not, this isn't probably news to anyone. I'm not the most nurturing individual. So I knew that Chelsie was going to be much better at that, and I wanted that. And I come from a very traditional background of like, I wanted her to be more available to the kids for to free up, more time for me to grow, the businesses, that I'm involved in. And I think that was the hardest thing of like, it was uncertainty and like, but it also put a little pressure, which, I wanted that pressure to know, hey, I need to succeed in this area. And then time, like kids take time, a lot of time from us. So if it's more equal, it's always like, either career or family is kind of, there's always a balance there. You're trying to balance those two. And, it's great to have one that, is probably a little better than the other one. And especially in our scenario, that it doesn't always play out that way, but I think it's worked so far anyways.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, definitely we obviously went through a couple months where it was stressful and we were like, all right, once I eventually did step down and that income was completely gone, it was like, oh crap, what are we going to do?
Got a car payment now? I'm like, what is this?
But I will say that just even obviously it was the best decision we could have made, but even at that time we knew it was the right decision. And so we just knew that, hey, we're going to go with this and we're going to make this work. And so just having that confidence in that. And it really did, pick up just slowly after that. And again, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
We always had a common objective, right? Yeah. That's where she didn't know. She doesn't know all the like budgeting details or where we
You're not a spreadsheet person?
I am not. No.
I'm the spreadsheet person too.
Yep.
So, and that's what I was gonna say. Like the advice of like everyone does this differently. Communication is key, but having somewhat of an end goal in mind, I'm like, hey, we want, we have aspirations. We want to probably spend some time in Arizona. I know you guys love Chicago. Like those are things you guys probably found common ground on. That whether or not all the details, but that's super important for people to have those conversations. And the closer you get to those, obviously, it's the funner it is. But
growing closer,
sorry, more fun. Shut that out.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital.
Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market.
Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.
That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website www.spinmarket.com.
You guys ready for a little dollars and cents?
Dollar bills, y'all.
All right, I'm on a bye week this week. So, Cole, what do you got for us?
So I'm going to nerd out a little bit with some stats.
Oh, shocker.
And so we've been talking about couples and finances and everything like that. So a couple of stats that we found that are very unique. Many couples, 34%, have mix of joint and separate bank accounts. So Molly has an account, I have an account, but we also have a joint account.
34%?
34%. While 23% have completely separate accounts. That means that Molly has her account, I have my account, no joint account, completely separate. Millennial couples are 69% more likely to have separate finances.
So interesting.
Yeah.
That feels high to me. I don't know why.
And we were asking Caleb before, like, what is their scenario? And I also think it's more to do with women and men are making more about the same money, right? So they're doing their finances separate.
Less reliance on one and the other early on in relationships, I would guess. And I'm sure there's not a ton of math on this, but also I think the age of people getting married is later too. So combining finances is happening later. So that's probably something to do with it. But interesting, kind of going against our more traditional vibes in the room, right? But
all right, so here is an article from Bankrate. Should couples have separate or joint bank accounts? So this is the pros and cons of having separate bank accounts. The pros: eases uncertainties about partner spending habits because you won't know what they're spending their money on. Partners won't have accountability for each other's debts. And it's easier to divide up assets in the case of separation or divorce.
Why, though? You're still technically married. You know what I'm saying? You're still 50-50.
It's more probably an accounting thing of just like, oh yeah, see, all my stuff goes here. So it's,
until it's an unwritten verbal commitment, until someone realizes, oh, they have 50,000, I have 10,000, but I'm entitled to that. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, keep going.
Okay, that's all right. Those are the pros.
Okay.
I'm not saying you should do this.
No,
I'm
no,
just saying
no,
what
I'm
the
just
pros and cons
just
are.
reading the article, Bailey.
yeah.
Relax.
Jeez.
I've been feisty all day.
The cons, more communication about finances may be necessary to ensure shared expenses are paid, to make sure that everything gets paid. Potential that couples may feel less closeness.
The Excel sheet makes Cole feel close, Molly.
You are feisty today.
Keep going.
And the last one is maybe harder to contribute to shared savings goals without a joint account, because you're not really I think you're also not sharing the savings at that point if you're not sharing the spending. So that's the pro of easier to divide assets in case of a separation or divorce. It's like, okay, so you're already preparing for that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You're kind of committed to this
right?
not working, or you're committed to the worst case scenario. Cole, I appreciate you stepping in for those stats. I know Cole Jaeschke likes to nerd out, but he's nervous because Chelsea's here. So let's get into the real questions while we're here. Molly, what does it like to be married to Cole? No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, this is a I think about this, and it's same for me and Luke. So obviously we work in the financial world. We talk about money. We think about money. We work with people on money. So it's kind of probably a little different. It's not like two people who aren't in the financial industry who maybe don't enjoy this conversation. Obviously, Cole very much enjoys finances and talking about it and thinking about money. So what does that look like in your guys' marriage since he's kind of in the financial world?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that. I'm set up with a plan. I have a plan for retirement. I've seen it written out. I have seen what we need to do, what we need to save, what we need to put away, what we'll have when we retire. And that feels great. And that's what Cole and Cole do for people. I mean, they write it out, and to see that you're working towards something, whether you're 20 years from retirement like we are, or you're 5 years from retirement, to see it written out for you just gives you a peace of mind that you're on track. And if you're not on track, you can make some changes, right? It's numbers. It's black and white. It's not gray. So I'm really grateful to have a plan. I'm also grateful to be married to someone who is a planner. I'm going to give him a hard time a lot of times for that, but a lot of stuff doesn't go undone. A lot of I's are dotted and a lot of T's are crossed. And he comes to me and says, here's what we need to do and here's why. And I might not like it and I might not feel comfortable with it, but he forces me to make decisions and he forces me to think about things I don't want to think about, like setting up a will. A lot of people don't want to have the conversation, if we would both pass, what's going to happen to our assets? What's going to happen to our children? Those aren't fun conversations to have, but those are necessary conversations. And when you're married to someone who can look at it and take the emotions out of it, of course, he has emotions. He's an emotional person, but he can say, you know what? I've worked with people who didn't have a will. I've worked with people who didn't set up a trust. And here's what happened, Molly. And this is what we don't want to have happen to us. And this is what I don't want to have happen to my clients. So I'm going to advise them to do this, this, and this, because I want to set them up for success. And so I'm really grateful to be married to somebody who set us up for success financially.
Oh, that was just the sweetest thing
Well said.
I've ever heard.
Well said.
Practice what you preach, right? I think
was thinking
that's
that
part of
too.
it. Yeah. It's you can't be telling people, advising people to do things if you're not doing them yourself. I'm a big proponent of that. Like, I'm not going to tell someone, hey, you should save this much for retirement, 10 to 15% of your salary or more, if I'm not going to do it myself. So that's part of what Molly's saying there is, I've had to have some, we've had some difficult conversations and we always end up doing the right things, I believe, and we're not perfect by any means, but we're trying to develop our retirement plan like I would do that for somebody else.
So what does that look like? What did that step look like for you guys getting all those plans in place? What does that look like for maybe a couple who really has no idea where to start, what to do? Like, how do I set my will and trust? Where do I go? What does that look like? What conversations do we have?
So you need to have the conversation about who is going to, if you have children that are underage, the guardian, I think, is the biggest conversation. Would you agree with that, Molly?
Yeah, you're going to want to talk about that. But I really think it's about finding somebody to be on your team with you, right? So you got the two of you, but you need a professional. I would not recommend doing your own finances. I would not recommend cutting your own hair. Now, some people do, and they love their haircut. Most people go to a professional. I would recommend sitting down with a trusted estate attorney, and they're gonna walk you through it. You guys don't have to have the answers when you sit down. It might help to have a little conversation ahead of time so there's not surprises in the room when you're like, I really want my sister to take the kids. No, I think my brother should take the kids. No, that could get a little ugly, but trust me, attorneys have heard that conversation and they've helped people counsel through it, just like you financial advisors have. I think great transparent conversation is when you do sit down and do say you're just going to go do your will, and if you have children together, by golly, you should at least have a will, right? Because that's going to set out a lot of that, but it forces you to have that conversation too of like, hey, what if scenarios, right? That no one wants to talk about, but that's going through that estate planning process or power of attorneys. Like, hey, what if I don't die, but I can't function anymore? Who's going to handle, is it Molly or is it someone else or where it might be? And I think it forces you to at least have those conversations, a couple times. And now the problem is, I think for a lot of people, is revisiting that as your life changes. But I think it's a great, tool if you haven't talked about a lot of that stuff, to get that set up. You go through all those scenarios and you get some of those arguments out in the room of like, no, I want it this way. I want it this way. And professionals can help you work through that because they're a neutral party. They don't know your sister and they don't know your brother. So they don't necessarily have stake in the game. Also, updating beneficiaries comes to mind as well too, especially again, the crowd, the baby boomers. You might still have your first spouse on there. You might still have when we first got married, a lot of us had our parents as our 401k beneficiary. So you need to get that stuff updated. Again, a professional will walk you through all that. So you don't have to have the answers yourself, I guess is what I'm saying. You could sit down with somebody who's like, oh, here's how we're going to set you up for success. And then they'll still help you start that process.
I love that. Do you guys feel better? Like you said, there may be disagreements, they're hard conversations, but don't you feel like you feel better after having those conversations? Because even if you're not going to have them, they're going to linger over your relationship some way or the other. They maybe not come out in the argument, but you guys probably feel that closeness and more togetherness, and also like that we're working towards the common goal. And if something happened, Cole's plan has a plan for his plan for you, Molly.
Right. I think before all of my peers, we were having a life insurance conversation, right? Because of what they do, right? Well, Molly, when I die, I'm like, well, wait a minute. What? No, you can't die. I mean, we're in our 20s. I'm like, you're never going to leave me. We're going to die holding hands together at 95.
Now it's like, stay golf a little longer.
Now she's like, how much life insurance do you have?
Do we need one more policy, honey?
Look at that pretty mountain over there.
So we had those conversations early because what he does. But again, it's the stuff, it's the hard stuff. It's the legacy planning. It's the stuff people don't want to talk about when I'm gone. And it's like, well, you can't pretend you're not going to leave this earth. And you want to make sure your spouse is set up for success. And they're professionals who can help you do that if you don't want to maybe do that yourself.
That is some really good advice. But now I kind of want to get into the fun stuff of being a couple and maybe working together. Not saying if you're doing it separately, you can't have common goals, but maybe talk about the planning part of it, Chelsie and Cole, like dreaming. Because I know Cole Jaeschke likes to dream up new businesses every day. So Cole, maybe you guys go into like, what is it like to do the fun stuff? Like looking ahead and planning together.
Well, not all this stuff isn't all fun.
I think it is. No, I do.
I get what you're saying. Like to most people, this isn't like their dream conversations of talking about all this stuff, but it's very important, and I think we don't talk about it like money and stuff every day, or it's not something like, hey, we're doing this, but I do want to go back to like the goals and aspirations where we want to go. I think there's a lot of commonality there with us, and that's where we kind of meet, and like we have common goals on, I would say. And that's where I'm a dreamer. I'm always like coming up with something new. I'm like, hey, what do you think of this idea? Or what do you think of this business? Or, I'm always like, I'm very, and Chelsea's like my sounding board of like, oh, and she's happy-go-lucky and positive and like, and I joked off mic. She's like, okay, well, when are we buying another house for us to vacation at, or, go somewhere? But, I don't know if you feel that way or how you feel about it, but I don't want to answer for I feel like I always answer for the both of us either. That's a problem. I need to shut up.
No. I think because we feel so good that we had some of those hard conversations to begin with of like, okay, yeah, what happens if something happens to us, where our kids go, those hard conversations, we feel good that we've had those. So now it is fun to dream. It is fun to, okay, in 10 years from now, where do we see ourselves going? And like Cole said, we just have very similar ideas on what that looks like for both of us, which is why we work so well together. But again, yes, I kind of bring him down to earth and he brings me out of my box a little bit. I have to kind of rein him in, but he also drags me out a little bit and makes me a little bit more, risk averse and stuff, or take more risks. So it is fun though to dream again, because we have such a solid foundation that we can go back on.
I was just going to say that you have the foundation and now you can think of things like, what do we want our life to look like with our kids? What do we want to be doing with our kids in 20 years or even 10 years traveling with them? What do we want them to experience? Or maybe a wedding or college someday. You never know what's going to come, but at least you guys are having those conversations. So what is your dream retirement together? Let's hear it.
Ooh, you go first.
Ooh,
you're aligned, so
we're
it's the
very
same.
similar.
Yeah.
We're very similar.
I thought you guys' was exactly the same.
I would say though, like freedom, autonomy, and flexibility are huge for us. We want to set ourselves up so that way we have the freedom and flexibility to be able to make sure we make all of Kale's sports games or be able to travel and take
might be
vacations.
Grandkids at this point.
Yeah, or grandkids, right. Take vacations when we want to and not have to be tied down to maybe one certain area or one certain place.
Everyone always benchmarks in this industry right there. We're like, well, how am I doing? And I always tell people like, I don't really have a retirement goal, like a specific age. It's more of that, like, one of our prior guests said work optional. Like that's type of my thing, but I think I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and like, I'll probably have my hand in some type of real estate venture or business even well into retirement, just the way my brain works, and I need stimulation of like constant activity. So, and I know that I'm aware of that. I think Chelsie doesn't function that way. So that's where
I'd be just fine on a beach in the Bahamas. Yeah.
Read a book.
Yep.
But that's where, she knows that, and I know kind of what she, how she envisions that. But I think it's really the choices, of those. Nope, I just want to shut that off and then not have to worry about, or hey, it's not making us happy, or it's not providing value to someone else's life or our life. And that's really what it kind of means to me. So it's always hard. And I always coach clients not to benchmark yourself against someone else, because
your life's not supposed to look like theirs.
I hate that. Yep.
Like Molly and Cole's life isn't going to look like yours. Same with me and Luke. And I do think there is something special about working together, and obviously separate or together. You guys have given a lot of good tips, like just dreaming and working towards the goals together. I really do just bring some sort of closeness. Like, hey, we're in this together for the long haul. I see us in Arizona together, or I see you on the beach. I'm going to be on my phone working a little bit, but you know what I mean? We're having these conversations and like even the serious conversations, like, hey, if something happens to us, what do we want for our family? And I think most people retrospectively would have these conversations sooner, and hopefully that we're talking about it, maybe it'll enlighten someone to have the conversation sooner. But like, it really is just putting yourself out there and being vulnerable with your spouse. What do you want, and what does this look like together, doing money together?
No, they can't get out of that question.
Yeah.
We got to ask them the retirement question.
Can I borrow this?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, Molly, Cole, are you traveling around watching the Cubs at every single game in your retirement?
So whose retirement goal is this?
Okay.
No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, what does your guys' retirement look like?
Well, I agree with Cole and Chelsie. Like, it's more about work optional for me. I don't see us probably ever like not having, at least me, not having something going on, whether it's real estate or doing something for our kids or whatnot. But work optional and having flexibility to be able to travel would probably be, I would say, our number one thing to do. Maybe Molly would say something different, but
we're sparking
get that Cub schedule.
Yeah.
Get the Cub schedule out. Or Broncos.
186 games in a season. I am not going to 186.
162.
No wife deserves that.
But I'll be in Chicago, and I'll be enjoying the culinary experience, the water, and the shopping.
Yeah. But you guys have that. I love that. And I appreciate you guys sharing your story. I think people probably assume, oh, they're financial advisors. They probably had this conversation. They know exactly what they're doing. But you really do grow and evolve, and life changes, and you guys move back, and that was a big change for you. And you guys had an unexpected turn in your life, and it's been the best thing that happened to you. Kale's like the best kid. He just like listens. If you guys have parenting tips, we'll take them. But no, honestly, we appreciate you guys. I do want to say this because you guys know this better than I do, but Kole and Cole put a lot of time and sacrifice into this business, into their clients, and they really care about them. And that is not possible without you guys doing what you guys do, sacrificing and putting everything in and being there for them. But seriously, thank you so much for letting them be a part of our team and giving our team so much.
Well, that's really nice of you to say, Bailey. I know they do care a lot about their work, and they're also, I think, both great husbands and fathers.
Absolutely. I say we see it from the inside out, so we know that they're taking care of their clients because they just take care of us and their kids at home. So
Making us blush.
And Molly, I'm going to let you do the quote today because you are a professional speaker, and I've been pretty intimidated sitting next to you this whole time.
This is from Babe Didrikson Zaharis. Not a household name, but a woman who excelled in sports in the 1950s. She was a golfer, a basketball player, a baseball player, and a track and field at a time when women were told, you know what, you should probably stay home, make food, and have babies. She said, I'll do that
I love
and
it.
play
This is my
sports.
thing.
She said, it's even harder to stay at the top in sports than it is to get there.
Go Cubs.
You've been listening to How to Money with Kole and Cole, the podcast of Full Swing Financial Planning. To learn more, visit their website at www.fullswingfinancial.com and follow them on Facebook and LinkedIn.
For now, I'm Cole,
I'm Bailey.
And I'm Cole.
and we'll see you on the greens.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.